All right, guys. So the U.S. House of Representatives just officially passed what Trump is calling his big, beautiful bill that may actually be the single worst piece of legislation that has passed through Congress in modern American history. So I'm going to break down everything that's in this bill. First, here we have the final vote totals. Republicans 216 in favor with 2 opposed, and Democrats 0 in favor with 212 opposed, bringing the total to 216 to 214. And if I'm not wrong, I believe this is still within the parameters of the 3 Democrats who died while in office during this congressional term. So it would be nice if maybe we could have a conversation, maybe we could do something about elderly, sick Democrats who refuse to leave their post and allow for a new generation to take charge in this party. I mean, that literally is the margin there as to whether or not this bill gets passed. Now, we continue to what's actually in the bill. So here from Jeff Stein, just a basic top line breakdown. Number 1, extending or increasing prior GOP tax cuts, the ones from 2017 under the previous Trump administration, with broad reach, including larger standard deduction, raising the child tax benefit, rate cuts across the income brackets. Number 2 is tax cuts that benefit the 1%, cut for the top bracket, 199A changes, and estate tax exemption is lifted to $15 million. Now, these are each going to cost $1 trillion and $2.5 trillion respectively. Now, who benefits the most from this? Well, here, just to put it on a graph from the Providence Journal, evidence here or data here from the Tax Policy Center and Penn Wharton, for the bottom 20%, you could see in terms of the percentage change in your after-tax income, right? What you're actually taking home at the end of the day. For the poorest Americans, the bottom 20%, you could see close to an 11% reduction in how much money you're going to be taking home as a result of this bill. For the next 20%, negative 1.5% that you're taking home. Then you work your way up here. And who does this bill benefit the most? Well, the top 0.1%, the top 1%, and the top 5% clearly seeing by far the most benefit from these changes. So again, trillions of dollars, $3.5 trillion being dumped into a tax cut that vastly disproportionately benefits the top 5%, the top 1%, the top 0.1%, and hurts the bottom 40% in this country. We continue. Number 3 is Trump 2024 campaign grab bag, including deduction for seniors, no tax on tips, and a car interest deduction that'll cost $0.5 trillion, so $500 billion, including the no tax on tips situation. Notice again the difference here when we're talking about something that could potentially benefit, some lower income Americans who work primarily on tips. This is half a $1 trillion, and this is $3.5 trillion. We continue. Number 4, business tax breaks, another $0.5 trillion there on expensing, R&D, etc. Number 5, funding for immigration enforcement and military budget, $400 billion. This includes $175 billion for ICE. Guys, keep in mind, their current budget, I think, is somewhere between like $8 to $10 billion. We're talking about increasing the immigration enforcement budget in this country to something that is larger than the entire amount that Russia spends on their military. ICE now effectively has a larger budget than Russia's military. What the fuck are we doing here? I mean, this is going to take the Trump Gestapo up to an entirely different level. I mean, this is astronomical, what we're talking about here in terms of the ICE budget and increase in military spending. Number 6, major safety net cuts targeting Medicaid and food stamps, including work requirements, new cost sharing for states, and paperwork requirements. The savings here are $1.3 trillion. And by savings, they mean we're going to save a little bit of money, not enough to offset the tax breaks for the millionaires and billionaires and the wealthy, but we're going to save a little bit of money by kicking millions and millions of people off of their health insurance. That's what this is. They're talking about anywhere between 12 to 17 million people are going to be kicked off of their health insurance as a result of this. Number 7, clean energy cuts, including cuts for subsidies for rooftop solars, EVs, heat pumps, tax credits for clean energy. The savings on this are about $500 billion, leading to the total deficit hit of $3 trillion. Now, just to point out on this energy thing, this doesn't make sense from any perspective that you want to look at it, right? Both from the perspective in terms of where the new investments for future renewable energy projects were going, which about 80% of them were going to red states. This is something that Democrats tried to do when they were passing these incentives, as they said, well, maybe if we have a bunch of these jobs in red states, then Republicans will be less likely to go back on these renewable energy incentives. Trump says no. We're going to gut all of that. We're going to screw over disproportionately red states in the process, all for what exactly? For $500 billion in quote unquote savings? What are these savings going to look like as we actively continue to destroy the planet? And not only are we continuing to destroy the planet, but we're also handing the future of energy to China, right? China is making all of their new investments in renewable technology, in electric vehicles, in solar tech, right? We are basically folding on this entire issue to double down on fossil fuels, which, regardless of whether or not we want it to be the case, is going to be the future. So both from like a national security perspective, from an investment perspective, from an economic perspective, and from a, hey, let's not completely destroy the planet and destabilize global civilization perspective, none of this makes any sense, right? So to summarize here, we're continuing to destroy the planet. We're giving a massive tax break to the wealthy. We're slashing social programs for the poor. We are drastically increasing the military budget and immigration enforcement. Trump's ICE Gestapo agents get a massive increase there. And we're doing all of this just to increase the debt and the deficit, which is like kind of the whole purpose of what Republicans have been running on for the last how many decades. And every single Republican administration gets in and they blow up the debt and the deficit. I mean, you can't even make the case that, oh, we had to cut Medicaid, we had to cut food stamps, we had to cut these clean energy incentives because we have to deal with the debt, right? The national debt is exploding. We're all going to be bankrupt tomorrow. We have to deal with it. You can't even make that case because you're increasing the debt with this bill. So this is possibly the largest upward transfer of wealth in American history, period. That's what this bill is. This bill is class warfare from the rich against the poor in this country. We continue here. Another point by Jeff Stein on something that Steve Bannon pointed out. And Steve Bannon was, one of the right-leaning MAGA-affiliated people who was trying to tell Trump that if you gut Medicaid, this is going to backfire spectacularly. You shouldn't touch Medicaid. And he also gave advice to Trump about allowing the tax rate for the top 1% to return just from 37% to close to 40%, right? 39.6%, so that they could have reduced the Medicaid cuts in the bill roughly in half. Think about that, guys. This is what I mean by class warfare. So you could have cut the Medicaid cuts that you're doing in half. And in order to offset the cost of keeping the Medicaid benefits in place, all you would have had to do is ask the top 1% of earners, the richest of the richest in this country, to pay an extra 2.5%, 2.6% yearly. So this is what they think of you. They would rather throw millions of people off of their health insurance than increase taxes for the top 1% by a couple percentage points. Your life is less meaningful to them than a few million extra bucks in the bank for a billionaire or a millionaire. That's what they think of you. We've also had countless clips. It seems like Republicans got their talking points in order. I've literally seen maybe half a dozen or more Republicans say this exact same thing as Steve Scalise is saying here. This is how they're trying to spin the Medicaid cuts, right? He says 35-year-olds sitting at home playing video games, they're going to now have to go and get a job. And by the way, that's a good thing for them. Their mom doesn't want them sitting in the basement playing video games anyways. So their argument is basically, no, we're not actually cutting Medicaid. We're just pushing people off of Medicaid who don't really need to be on it, right? In their view, right, keep in mind, we're talking about between like 12 to 17 million people that are going to lose their healthcare coverage as a result of this bill. And by the way, also there are studies showing that there are going to be tens of thousands of people who die in the United States every single year as a result of this bill. But he's trying to make the case here that there are 12 to 17 million 35-something-year-olds in this country who are living at home with their parents, who are willingly choosing to not go and look for a job and are just sitting around playing video games all day. I mean, seriously, guys, what percentage of the population do you think that he's actually describing here? 0.001%? What are we actually talking about? It's certainly not anywhere remotely close to 12 to 17 million people that we're referring to here, but this is what they have to do, right? Because they know that this is deeply, deeply unpopular. They know that they're screwing over pregnant mothers and children and people who, maybe just got fired from their job and need health insurance, or people who are disabled, or whatever the case may be. They know that they're screwing those people over. And so in order to sort of like morally justify it to themselves and to the people, they have to go and create this straw man, right? This artificial construction that, no, we're actually just kicking off, lazy 35-year-olds who just want to sit at home playing video games all day. And by the way, we should note, healthcare, as it is in most other countries around the world, should just be treated as a human right, right? Whether or not you have a job, or you're working a certain amount of hours every week, or you're disabled and you can't work, or whatever your circumstance may be, you deserve healthcare just by virtue of the fact that you are a human being, right? This is how we treat healthcare in this country. It is a commodity. It's something to profit off of. It's not something that we treat as just, hey, if you get sick, maybe you should be able to go and see a doctor, and maybe you shouldn't be at risk of bankruptcy as a result of that. I mean, just basic shit in this country is seemingly completely out of reach, just nosediving in the opposite direction that we should be going. We also have reporting here from a member of Congress, Boyle, who's saying that behind the scenes, many of these Republicans don't even like this bill. And there was reporting leading up to the vote in the House that, okay, Thomas Massie was saying we have enough Republicans to block this, and then they basically all just folded to Trump, right? So apparently behind the scenes, he says this: I really wish that some of what Republicans say in private could become public, because it's always in whispered, hushed tones, saying, quote, I don't agree with Donald Trump. I don't think this is good legislation. But then they always look around and say, shh, don't tell anyone I said that. The reality is, so many of my Republican colleagues are deathly afraid of Donald Trump. And that's just the reality. That's just the reality. There probably were a sizable amount of Republicans who didn't want to vote for this, who didn't agree with it for XYZ reason, or who didn't want to have to go back to their constituents. Maybe they have an election coming up. They don't want to have to go back and explain that they just pushed a bunch of people in their state from Medicaid coverage or from food stamps. And so they might have voted against this if everything else was neutral, right? But the reality is, you have Donald Trump as your cult leader. And so everybody has to bend down and kiss the ring. That's just the reality of the Republican Party. It is a full-blown cult. You can't even criticize the bill without Trump threatening your existence as a lawmaker in this country. The only person that has actually managed to stand 10 toes down that I've seen in the Republican Party is Thomas Massie, who I disagree with, economically at least, on basically everything, but at least he's actually standing on business. At least he's actually sticking to what his principles are and not just riding along with whatever Trump wants. We also have here another congressman, just in terms of how deeply unserious these people are, as they're destroying the lives of potentially millions of people. Congressmen who voted against Trump's bill will now vote for it to own the libs. He says, Democrats' reaction helped to persuade me. So I was against the bill, but now I'm in favor of it because Democrats said the bill was bad. So now it actually must be good. All right, this is where we're at in this country. Now, in the meantime, in terms of Democrats, don't worry, guys. Our Democratic leadership was coming in here hot to save the day. So both in the Senate and in the House, this is what happened. I'm not even kidding, guys. This is a real tweet. This almost, when I read it the first time, I thought maybe this is a parody account. It almost reads like an Onion post, right? Chuck Schumer tweets this out proudly. News. I just got the name struck off this bill with a move on the floor of the Senate. It is no longer named One Big Beautiful Bill. This bill is an ugly, ugly betrayal of the American people by Republicans, and the American people will remember it. He's bragging about the fact that his resistance to this bill was on a technicality changing the name of it so that it's not called a big, beautiful bill. Thanks, Chuck. This is fucking worthless. This literally means nothing. If anything, you could almost make an argument that you should have left the name as is, because by changing the name, I don't even know what the name of it is now, but you might actually be giving Republicans an opportunity to sort of run away from it and not claim it as the Trump big, beautiful bill as he has branded it for himself. Why would you strip away the branding from Donald Trump, connecting it to MAGA, connecting it to Republicans? It just seems bizarre. And again, also absolutely worthless. I mean, just performative nonsense here from Chuck Schumer. This is the resistance that you get in the Senate. In the House, we had Hakeem Jeffries. I guess he broke the record here in terms of the longest filibuster, the longest floor speech. I think it was 8 hours and 32 minutes that was previously set by Kevin McCarthy. So he beat that. But again, what is this actually worth other than just the performance of it? What does this actually get us? You postponed the vote of the bill by half a day? Is that what we're getting from this? This is not of any value in terms of actually preventing the bill from getting passed. Now, you might be saying, okay, Democrats are in the minority. What are they supposed to do? Guys, we have had months leading up to this bill. As Emma Vigeland points out here, maybe if Democrats spent weeks leading a mobilization effort against the bill, a national strategy with rallies in key districts, instead of having meltdowns about Zoran Mamdani, I'd be a bit more enthusiastic about Jeffrey's grand plan to, again, delay the vote until the afternoon. It's like you could have done more than this, right? There's a huge chunk of the American people, according to the polls, who don't even know what's in this bill. That's a failure of Democratic messaging. That's a failure of Democratic mobilization, of strategy to actually push back on this, right? Why did we not have Chuck Schumer or any Democrats, top-level establishment Democrats, doing what Bernie and AOC have been doing on their anti-oligarchy tour? Why don't you go to key Republican districts of Republicans who, might be on the verge of being replaced if they vote for this bill, put pressure on them, do rallies, tell the people in their districts what their elected official is about to be voting for? I mean, there are so many different things you could have done, but instead we get a lengthy floor speech delaying the vote by fucking half a day, and we get Chuck Schumer changing the name of the bill. I mean, it's a fucking joke, guys. Now, in terms of how popular this bill is, as I finish off here, Harry Enton points out the net favorabilities, or unfavorabilities, I should say. Multiple different sources here: WAPO, Pew, Fox News, Quinnipiac, and KFF, all completely underwater in terms of favorable versus unfavorable. So the net favorability rating, -19, -20, -21, -26, and -29. So anywhere between underwater by 19 points to underwater by 29 points. And this bill passes. Meanwhile, you have policies like, $15 minimum wage or $20 minimum wage. You have policies like Medicare for All, a Green New Deal, just basic shit, to materially improve the lives of average working class people. Overwhelmingly popular in this country. Do those things get passed? No. What average Americans want in terms of legislation in this country has basically no bearing whatsoever on what actually gets passed. What actually matters in Congress, what actually matters in American politics in general, is what the billionaires want. That's all that it is. We are run by billionaires. We are run by the Israel lobby. We are run by the fossil fuel lobby, by the giant health insurance companies that make billions of dollars a year denying people care in this country. That's who actually runs this country. It's not the American people. They could give less of a shit what you or I think about this legislation. They could give less of a shit about how many millions of people are going to be drastically negatively harmed by this kind of legislation. Because at the end of the day, it benefits their real constituency, the wealthy, the powerful in this country. I mean, again, it's just a sick joke. Now, meanwhile, again, in terms of Democrats, completely underwater, right? I mean, think about in this moment, Democrats who say their party leaders should be replaced. 62% say yes, only 24% say no. 62%. It's almost a super majority of Democratic voters say Schumer and Jeffries should be replaced. Both of them obviously refuse to step down. This is what we get in this country. Tell me that this is a democracy. So we have a bill that, again, slashes social programs for the poor, guts clean energy initiatives, gives a massive upward transfer of wealth in the form of a tax cut to the wealthiest billionaires and corporations in this country. We are drastically expanding the military-industrial complex, the ICE budget, his ICE Gestapo agents, the surveillance state, all of this so that we can blow another massive hole in the debt and the deficit. I mean, again, when I said at the beginning, this might be the single worst piece of legislation that has ever been passed in modern American history. That's not an exaggeration. So I'll leave you guys off with that. I mean, the consequences of this are to say that it's dire is the understatement of the century.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying